Welcome back to the Afterword, a conversation about the future of words. This week we're talking about the story of water, and we're so glad to have Emerald Clark of Greenville Water and Mark Smith of Impact Water here with us to continue what we're talking about. Right now, around the world, 844 million people lack access to clean water. This impacts health for sure, but it also impacts a family's finances, their children's education, their access to a whole array of other services. So, Mark, can you just give us a brief before and after picture of a village in Honduras? What's it like there before they have clean water and after an impact team makes an impact?
Well, hard is not the word. What it does to the women and children, because they're really responsible to go get the water, it's really hard. The woman goes out with her children and she's got to make the hour-and-a-half trip. She puts the bucket in the water and she has no idea whether that's contaminated or not. I mean, she knows because her children's going to be sick, but that's all there is. So there's futility and frustration. They come back, dysentery, parasites, even death is just an everyday occurrence in their lives. And so they've lived with this for 35 years. And in the men of the village, one day I had some guys together, all the men in the village, and I said, "What are your hopes are? What have you dreamed of?" And they gave me this real puzzled look in their face, and they said, "Well, clean water. You are the answer to what we've been dreaming about all of our lives, that we could give clean water to our children." And just as a side note, when they turn that tap on, you never get used to the look on that woman's face. I mean, the tears and the joy, her life and that village life will be transformed forever. You know, no more sickness, no more waterborne sickness, no more all the trips to the river. I had a 55-year-old lady who looks like she was 75 at the end of a village one day, end of a project one day, and she stood up and she started weeping and she said to all of us, there was probably 250 people there, "You know, on Tuesdays, I have to go 45 minutes down to the river to get the water." She said, "But on Tuesdays, that's wash day." And she says, "I have to make 5 trips to wash my clothes," and tears streaming down her face. And she says, "And now all I have to do is go turn on the tap outside my house." Now, that's transformation at a very simple level that profoundly changes the life of the village forever. Now, one side note, on our first project, we took a survey of how many of participation in school with the children. 41% of the children participated in school on a regular time. We came back to that same village a year and a half later, and they had 97% participation in school. And that's their only way out. So water becomes a catalyst for change, not only physically, but socially and mentally. And the whole village has come together, something they've never done before. And this can-do spirit begins to penetrate that village. We've had villages that have gone on to have community stores and electric systems have come in because they put their money together. Banks, I mean, a little small, banks, not like on that we would have, but it's just amazing what this clean water project serves as a catalyst for change in their lives and the lives of that community.
I can relate a little bit, Mark. I have been to Liberia and seen the impact of clean water on a village, and I love that you brought up the education piece, where so many children are disenfranchised because they're constantly getting water or they're sick.
Let me give you one small concept. You go from no hope to hope.
Yep.
That will transform a village.
Absolutely. That's powerful.
So what are some of the projects that maybe have spun off of this? What's something a village maybe has done once they realized they could build a water supply?
We had one community. Every village, just about every village that we go to, has small coffee, and they, when we first went there, they got about $2,000 per family. This was 13 years ago. That was the average, and that's all the money they get. It's $2,000 a year. The coffee guys come in and they just literally destroy them economically, and it's gone from $2,000 to $600 a year now because of the coffee. Well, and that's because of all the interest rates of the money. So one village got together and they pool savings that they have from their coffee. They put some money together and they start loaning it out in their community. And now that community has flourished just because they've got this little savings account bank. One other village got together and they saw that people bought goods, so they built a little hardware store. Well, there's about 25 or 30 villages now that come to that community. They buy their goods there, and everybody in the community owns a share of that, and they've enlarged that little hardware store 3 times since we were there. Schools come in, and the education. In one community, they only went to the 3rd grade. Because they have been able to pool their resources, they've got a high school now in that community. So, and then this community can-do spirit. They have, if you live in a community with 300 people, you know everybody's business for 35 years. And so there's all kinds of disagreements and everything. Well, they've got to lay all of those aside. And for the first time, they come together. And so there's unity in this group spirit, and they lay all of these things behind them. So there's just more projects than I can even enumerate, but it is truly a transformational time in those villages.
I love these stories. I just love hearing these stories about what water can do. I know someone who's lived in Central America almost all of his life, and he's in his 70s now, and he said to me, start a water project in any village, and you've started economic development in that village.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's a great statement.
That's beautiful. Yeah. The stories are the catalyst. It's the why behind what we do. So really appreciate you sharing that, Mark. So let's just do a little pivot, Emerald. We have been hearing in the news lately about infrastructure and water, and it may become more of a hot button issue. But again, as Americans, we probably don't think about water that much. But let's think about this from a political standpoint, Emerald. What should we ask our candidates to think about as we have discussions about water?
Well, one of the things that Mark talked about is how all water is connected, and we are truly all connected through water. So we have to fight for water like it's our last bit every day. So when you think about what are some hot button issues, or how do I engage my elected officials to speak on behalf of water rights, it's really, you have to look at, lobbying for additional water rights and regulations. That can make a huge difference. Ensuring that water quality rules are enforced to keep water sources from being polluted. Pollution, as Mark has mentioned, causes serious disease and can absolutely eliminate a water source. Using surface water, investing in water storage, exploring new technologies. I think we always need to look to the future on how we can enhance or improve something, but also being mindful of downstream needs. Again, everything that you use goes downstream. Again, water is connected. There's going to be increased competition over it. So it's important, going back to sustainability and conservation, it's important that we all take ownership of our water resource, that we're all good stewards of that water. And also, too, it's important tying it back to infrastructure to ensure that that infrastructure is reliable in your community and not compromising that infrastructure or potentially any clean source of water via pollution because of the integrity of that infrastructure. I think you can look throughout the U.S. and there are projects that some of the government ends up doing, and it can compromise clean water in communities. And we've seen that. You don't have to even look as far as another country. It's right here in our backyard. So there's water scarcity in the United States. And it's just something that we all need to, again, be mindful of, know that there's somebody out there that doesn't have it. So practice conservation, practice sustainability. And when you talk to your elected officials, think about these things. What are your rights as a citizen? What are your rights that legislative or that elected official is going to fight for you and advocate on your behalf? So think about that. And then, it's also great to partner with local agencies. In Greenville, we've got a lot of great agencies. Greenville Water to start with. We've got a great team of leaders, a great board of commissioners. So, they are the ones out there advocating on behalf of Greenville County citizens to ensure that we have the best quality resource. And truly, that's what it's all about.
I really appreciate that. And again, when you think about it from an advocacy point of view, and like you keep saying, Emerald, that your phrase just keeps resonating in my mind. Think about people downstream. That's just so important. So I really appreciate you putting that in perspective.
So we do more with water than just drink it. It takes 11,000 liters of water to produce 1 pound of coffee, 300 liters to make the Sunday paper, 20,000 liters to grow enough cotton to produce 1 pair of jeans and 1 t-shirt. Water grows food, it fuels fashion, it does a lot more than that. How can farmers in both developed and developing countries get enough water? What happens when they don't, or what happens when there's too much water? What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, from my perspective, 2 things. In Honduras, last year, they had 2 hurricanes within 45 days. The main airport at San Pedro Sula, which is probably the biggest airport there, was 6 feet underwater. This was right in the middle of when they were picking their coffee. So it destroyed their coffee crops, destroyed their homes. It affected just about every area about halfway into Honduras because of the intensity of the rain. So it just inundated village after village after village. And now they have to start all over. So you can imagine what these people are thinking when you have no hope. I have no problem at all understanding why there are hundreds of thousands of people on that trail from Honduras to the United States, because they have no hope. Take away hope from somebody and it's devastating. On the flip side of that, I've been in sub-Saharan Africa and in Uganda, in northern Uganda, where just devastated by lack of clean water and civil warfare with the LRA, and huge encampments of 15 to 20,000 people with trucks coming in, supplying their food, water being drilled there on site. It is the most horrific site to participate in, and it's because of lack of clean water. So from a humanitarian standpoint, those 2 things, either an abundance of water can destroy, or lack of clean water can decimate, thousands of people.
It's hard to think about too much water being an issue. I remember a few years ago when a friend of mine who grew up on a farm said, the economy of farming basically is you want it to rain on your farm and not on the farms of anybody around you. And I think a few years ago, something like that happened in Honduras when the rains were wonderful and the coffee crop flourished, and the coffee crop flourished everywhere. So the bottom just dropped out of the market. We think about water as a good thing, and it is, but too much of a good thing can be a problem.
Yeah, and especially when that's your only crop.
Right.
Right.
Emerald, I'm going to toss a question because you mentioned something earlier, something about new technology. And I did see a report about this very arid place in the world. They are using these strips, very thin fibers to collect the water from the atmosphere, and then it goes into some piping. Do you know of any other new technology that's coming down in the research and development lines for water?
Hey, Amy, that is a great question. In terms of new technology, there's a lot of different things that I think that people in the water sector look at. In terms of water, water scarcity, it's really looking at new technology, but also the waste of water. How can we eliminate the waste? So in the water sector, we look at eliminating waste in the distribution system. So some of those technologies that we might use would be to go into pipes and to figure out if there are any leaks or the potential for a break, because then that's two things. It becomes an infrastructure issue, but also it becomes a water loss issue. So we use a lot of different new technologies in terms of that to, help us locate potential leaks or check the quality and durability and the rest of the lifespan on some of our pipes. So that really helps us to plan for the future. It's one big circle, right? It keeps the money where it belongs, and it ensures that we can give the customers the best quality resource at a price that's reasonable. So for us, it's really about making sure that we're not wasting and using those technologies to promote that.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that, because it just made me think about it, as we're moving forward into the next, looking at trends and things that are coming down the pike. Appreciate you sharing that. All right. Every 2 minutes, a child dies from a water-related disease, and every year, 260 billion is lost globally due to lack of basic water and sanitation. We saw some scary things happen close at home with the Flint water crisis. Now we have a global pandemic. Everyone needs to continually wash hands and sanitize surfaces on a massive scale. What can we do to make sure our families, our neighbors, and our world has access or keeps access to clean water? Emerald, I'm going to toss it to you first.
Right. So again, I feel like a broken record in some respects, but I'm going to keep saying it. We need people to practice conservation and sustainable use of our water supply. I know that every time you turn on the faucet here in the United States, you're pretty much always getting clean water. It's reliable. But as Mark has said, that is not the case everywhere. And we know that. If you travel around the world, you know how important and critical clean water is and access to that clean water. Conservation and sustainability. Treat it like it's the last you might have. Understand that everything that you do, your footprint does make a difference, whether it's to today or whether it's 100 years from now. Like you said, not only are we drinking the water that dinosaurs drank, but we're also drinking the water that dinosaurs peed in. So let's make sure that we're being smart about our water supply. So that could be as simple as, really, for us at Greenville Water, we like to engage the public to participate in voluntary water quality protection programs. That could be, some of your citizen science academies at a different level, your Adopt a Stream programs. One, getting out there and getting in your water and seeing what's in it. It might not be your drinking water, but it is water in your community. So what is that water made up of? What's in that water? Is it even safe for you to play in? That's the thing that kids like to do. They like to go down to the Reedy River on a hot day, splash around in the water. Is that water clean? Well, join one of these programs and you can test the water. You can see what kind of microbials are in it. You can see everything about water. Learn about the pH, different chemicals that are in it, or it may be in it, hopefully not. Also, educating the community about how they can help protect this resource. So what do you do if it's if you live near a body of water, what can you do to help protect it? Is it a trash cleanup day? Getting in the water and pulling the trash out of it. Litter trashes everyone, as we've said for generations in South Carolina. We want to keep the upstate and the rest of our country beautiful. So, get your family together, get your friends together. When you go on a walk, take a trash bag, pick up in your area. You want to protect your natural environment and your resources. That spills right into instilling community pride and ownership. People are truly going to protect what they value. So how do you make water valuable to somebody enough to protect it? We all like boating and swimming in water, but what can that do to our water? Can that damage it? Can oils come out from your boat? Could you maybe even introduce an invasive species from one body of water to another because you didn't rinse off your boat? You don't think about that. You're boating, you're having fun, you're getting a tan, you're enjoying yourself. But, are you causing damage to the water that people are using as a drinking source? And even if it's not a drinking source, what are you doing to ensure the quality of the water that you're around? You can, again, reduce stormwater runoff. That's important. So implementing some best management practices within your communities. And if you've got septic tanks in areas where there are bodies of water, ensuring that those septic tanks are, in top performing condition. Because if they are not, you worry about them maybe leaching into your water and then contaminating it. So all of these collectively are truly ways that anybody can influence the quality of their water.
I want one of the kits, Emerald, to test water. That sounds fascinating. I can't wait to get.
You can join me anytime, Amy.
I'm so excited. I have a creek in the back of my property. I want one of those kits. That's exciting.
I want to talk more about the fact that we're drinking water that dinosaurs have peed in.
Oh, I know. I'm grossing out.
That's like my new idea. I'm going to be thinking about that for days now.
Oh, yeah. Great.
We use that a lot, Holland. At Greenville Water, pre-pandemic, we do tours of our Soball water treatment plant out in Travelers Rest. And so we'll have kids of all ages, elementary to college and even beyond, come out and tour the facility. And that's one of the first things we start with. You're drinking water that the dinosaurs have peed in. But rest assured, we have cleaned it and it's good to go.
Wow, you know that I can top your story. Well, on I think it's my third water project. I'm standing in the middle of this village in the middle of Guatemala. There's a pig that's rolling in the water, and about 50 yards downstream, there's a woman washing her clothes, and another 50 yards downstream, there's a lady picking the water up in buckets to take home to her family. The reality of that is that not only dinosaurs have peed in it, but the pigs and the washing of the clothes, that's a daily occurrence in the third world. So what am I trying to do? Well, I had an opportunity about 15 years ago to meet one of the highest ranking generals in Uganda. And I didn't know who he was. I sat down with him and I looked at him and I said, "Sir, I have to apologize to you." I said, "I'm from Texas." And I said, "You know how we Texans are. There's Texas, and then there's the rest of the world." I said, "I don't know who you are. Would you introduce yourself?" Well, I think that's the way we kind of look at the world. There's the United States, and then there's the rest of the world. And so we try to go around sharing stories and videos and film of how about 40 to 60% of the rest of the world lives when they don't have clean water, and what they have to go through in order to get clean water, and how can we get people involved in that process. For the last 13 years, I take Americans with me. I've taken 271 men to Honduras with me on these 36 projects. And they walk into that village, and for a week, they're looking at it. For a week, they see it. They can't turn the TV off. They can't, those sights that they see, what they experience of the lack of clean water, the way that these people live, they spend, like me, I'm 73 years old, you spend the rest of your life trying to put together what you have and what the rest of the world has. And how do you fit that together? So that's a great challenge to put that in people's lives. And so we're trying to get people to think about the rest of the world as well.
Wow, Holland, this has been a very powerful conversation in so many ways.
Right. So, last question, right? The one everyone always waits for. What's a metaphor to help us understand the way we get and keep safe, clean water?
I walked into a bookstore. I don't know, it's probably 4 years ago. And there was 2 bottles of water up there. And one was contaminated, dirty water. And one had a clean water bottle. And said, would you donate? I don't know whether it was charity water or which one it was. But I thought, that's the stark reality. Which one do you want to drink? It's really that simple. Life-giving, clean water is the catalyst for all of life. And so to be a part of something like that, to get people to understand the value of clean water, that's the challenge.
That's a great word picture.
What about you, Emerald?
Yeah, in terms of a good metaphor to understanding how we get and keep safe, clean water, I mean, think about water like air. Clean water is like clean air. It's an essential part of life. Think about when you've been to a city that's congested and a lot of pollutants are in the air. You can feel it in your skin. It just permeates every part of your being. Well, that's like clean water too. You can feel it in your skin. Clean water is like air. We need both of those elements to live. So it's important that we all treat it like it is the most vital thing in our lives.
So good.
Thank you for sharing that. I don't know when I really first started to think about water. I think it was quite a long time ago, though, Amy, when I was working at CBM, and I remember that we had a project in the West Bank, and the person who ran that project was married to the head of water for the Palestinian Authority. And I thought, what a weird job. Who's the head of water for something? And then someone explained to me, well, particularly in a place like the West Bank, water is absolutely critical. There's not a lot. And the person who's managing this is probably more important than anyone else in the leadership of that country or that authority at the time. So we don't think a lot about water. I mean, I don't. I just kind of get in the shower or turn on the dishwasher or the washing machine, and it's just there. But it wasn't always that way. It's not that way for everybody. And for those of us who live in Greenville, I know I feel really lucky because I can drive just down the road to Anderson, order water in a restaurant, and it ain't the same. I got to tell you, it just ain't the same.
I know, Holland. I remember being a little kid and there was a play, and it was kind of Emerald what you were talking about with, teaching conservation. But in this play, the children were forced to have their one daily glass of water because it was so scarce. And I thought, that's an impossibility. There's no way we're ever going to get to that point. But the point being, we only have a limited resource and we need to treat it with care and respect. And I really appreciate both of your metaphors today.
Absolutely, Amy. And Holland, it's funny, you talk about drinking water coming from elsewhere. At some of our events in the community, I will, get drinking water from various systems outside of Greenville Water, and I will do a blind taste test. And I tell you, it is the kids who know right away, the moment the Greenville water touches their lips, they can say, without a doubt, with 100% conviction, oh, that's Greenville water. And their parents are going, "Are you sure?" And I'm looking going, "Oh, they're right." So it is interesting to watch our community come around and actually pick out our water out of 4 or 5 different water utilities and to say, man, our water is amazing. And it truly is. I wish for that all over the world.
Fascinating.
What's the water taste like after you've cleaned it up in Honduras, Mark?
Very good. It is mountain spring water. And so great water. The same thing with San Antonio. We're in a huge aquifer here, and so they don't have to treat hardly anything with the water that comes here. So it's crystal clear and tastes great.
Well, if somebody wants to go to Honduras with you, they want to support Impact Water and the difference that you're making in the lives of people in small villages in the mountains of Honduras, what do they do? How do they get in touch with you?
Well, go to our website and look us up. We've got some videos there and some links. It's www.impactwater.org. And we'll sign you up. And I tell the people that go with me, it is an adventure of a lifetime. It will change not only how you see life, but it'll transform the way you think about the third world and about your own drinking water back home.
Emerald, if people want to learn more about Greenville Water, maybe somebody wants to tour here in the next few weeks or months, what do they need to do?
That would be great. We welcome everyone. And I encourage truly anyone interested to visit our website, greenvillewater.com. You can also follow us on our social media channels, Facebook or Instagram, where we discuss all of these topics that we've talked about today and share insights into our treatment, distribution, management efforts, and our community involvement that are really focused on supporting a more sustainable Greenville community. We love having plant tours. We've got sponsorship opportunities within the community. So truly, our website is a great resource. We even provide water for community events. We have what we call a water buffalo, which is not what you think. It's not a water buffalo, although that might be very interesting at events. But it is a 400 to 500 gallon tow behind vessel that we use and take out to events in our community, in our service area. And we also provide hand washing stations for the community. So, that's something important too when you think about clean water. Clean hands are important as well.
If I can say something, Holland, at this point too.
Sure.
For those of people who want to get involved in clean water for Honduras, they can go to our website, and it's really a neat deal because 100% of what people give goes directly to Honduras and clean water. We don't receive any for administration or anything else. So if you'd like to be a part, it costs us about $14,000 to $16,000 per village. And that's money that we raise from outside sources. We're not funded by the government or anybody else. And people who just love what we're doing, get on board, adopt a village for $25 a month and be a part of, 250 people who underwrite all of those clean water projects all over Honduras.
So good.
Well, join us next week. We'll be talking about brain health and how we sustain the central operating system of our bodies. That's going to be very interesting, Amy.
Yeah, we're shifting from water, which we need for our bodies, to our brains and how we keep our brains healthy. So it'll be.
We started this by saying 73% of your brain.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, thank you again to Emerald and Mark. But we want to ask you, our listeners, to please leave us a review, rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Become a subscriber to theafterwordpodcast.com. It does help us keep the conversations going. And remember, you are always welcome at our table.